Welcome to James Dobson. It starts out fun, and then it gets really, really depressing. Welcome to James Dobson.
It's I hate James Dobson.
Oh, God.
Off to a really good start.
Welcome to I Hate James Dobson. As always, I am Jake. I am joined by my incredible friend and colleague, I would say the croutons to my salad, Brooke.
The croutons are the best part.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Wow. What are you going to say about me?
We have a guest today. This is another one of our coworkers, the incredible Jordan. Hi, Jordan.
Hi.
Jordan, the audience knows both Brooke and I are therapists. I'm a marriage and family therapist. Brooke is some other letters.
Yeah, some other letters.
Tell us a little bit about you and what you know about therapy or Dobson or evangelicalism, or how you're feeling today.
Totally. So I'm Jordan. I am the token Jew today in this space. I have been listening along with Brooke and Jake, and I am both terrified and excited and a little turned on, but like not in a good way. Yeah, and I focus in trauma with my therapy, and this fits right into that wheelhouse. So I'm like ready and also not, I think.
That's
Amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever said that I am a grief therapist, and it's important because I go home and grieve every time we record these podcasts.
I grieve beforehand. We just got finished talking about bringing up boys, and we looked at it in a broader social context. We explored how it and Dobson's work generally feed into the larger cultural movement of Christian fascism and the violence inherent in it. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Jordan, what is your background in evangelical Christianity?
What is my background?
What do you know about it?
Yeah, got a doctorate in that. What is my background? My platonic partner, who is someone very, very close to me, is a recovered evangelical. And so a lot of the information I know is through them and also through you, Jake. Thank you for spreading the gospel. But yeah, not a lot. I was brought up in a Jewish household. My dad, who did not convert but supported my mom in raising us Jewish, is Baptist. And so genuinely the closest contact I have to Christianity, other than like the whole world, is baptism. No, being Baptist. See, I'm not good at this.
You are so good at this.
That's perfect.
But all of that to say, like, not a lot.
Perfect. Great. I wanted to bring you specifically on for these episodes because it's Pride Month.
Oh, yeah, it is.
We love being gay.
It is Pride Month.
It sure is. We're not recording this in Pride Month. This is coming out June 1st.
I was like, do you
It's
know?
April.
No, it's Pride Month.
It's June 1st.
The viewers, we all just looked at each other and then looked at Jake and said yes. I believe you.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, you guys.
Oh, no. What does that mean? What's it going to be?
We've now gone through 3 of Dobson's books. Dare to Discipline, Cacao. What? Oh, God,
Wait, let me do it.
Okay.
What women wish their wives knew about the women's world of sports.
Exactly.
ESPN.
And Bringing Up Boys. We've gotten to see a thorough overview of Dobson's abusive beliefs, his horrible writing style, and his astounding evolution from self-righteous counselor to, quote, literally thinks he's holy and can do no wrong. Head up his own ass evangelical overlord stylings. This time, for our Pride Month extravaganza, we're going to do things a little bit differently.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
And today specifically, we're going to be looking at Dobson's history of homophobia.
Oh, my God. No wonder Jake bought us all these snacks and treats.
He bribed us.
Homophobia is probably the central through line to Dobson's work, perhaps tied with misogyny, although these things are deeply intertwined, right?
Yeah.
This episode, we're going to look at the many reasons why James Dobson hates me. We're going to look at his rhetoric and the actions taken by Dobson, as well as the hydra of organizations he's created. But pretty much all of Dobson's work boils down to hating queer people and hating women.
Yes.
Love that.
That's pretty much all my work boils down to as well.
Dobson's kind of theological position, what he will say, and this is a quote from him, "Can you be gay and a Christian? Yes."
He said yes.
He said yes.
Oh.
You can be a Christian and at the same time struggle with same-sex attractions.
Yeah.
But no, you cannot be a faithful, obedient Christian while willingly involving yourself in homosexual acts.
The sex is too good.
The sex is too good.
Homosexual acts like being a homosexual.
Yeah.
Or holding a guy's hand.
Or scissoring.
Or looking deeply into his eyes while you're scissoring him.
Yeah.
Essentially, his position is love the sinner, hate the sin, which is bullshit.
Yes.
There are people in the world who he claims as success stories, like Jackie Hill Perry, who is a woman who is attracted to women, we would say lesbian, who does not adopt that label for herself, and who is married to a man. She's taken the actions of heterosexuality while still having these attractions. That's a thing you can do. I don't think it's an expectation you should have on gay people, because having been in mixed orient relationships, this sucks.
Yeah.
So did she make that choice? So she is out as a woman who likes women.
Yeah. But has left the homosexual lifestyle.
But does she still identify as a woman who likes women?
Yes.
It's just the behavior.
Yes.
Not the thinking.
She is currently the token, look, you can, the things we're saying aren't hateful, here's a person who did it. It used to be the people who ran Love One Out. It used to be any number of people. They've all recanted since then. I don't know Jackie Hill Perry's life trajectory. I wish her all the best, but she's very much the tokenized good Christian struggling with same-sex attraction but isn't gay.
So like the poster dyke, but not. Got it.
Hey everyone, this is Jake. I don't think I explain myself particularly well here. Evangelicals in my life have said similar things to me about mixed orientation relationships as some attempt to find some empathetic, seemingly moderate middle ground position. Now, mixed orientation relationships can occur for so many reasons. Parenting, an evolving sense of identity, just the inherent limitations in categories such as homosexual, and so on. These relationships can be loving and successful. The main predictor of success in these relationships is the level of commitment between partners. What I'm taking issue with is the expectation of all queer people to do this, otherwise they lose their status as a real Christian, and the intense shame wrapped around all of this. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah, I know about this. Cut all this if you hate it. But I know about this. There's a group called the Brotherhood. And it is. Oh, really? Okay. It's for, I think, adult men who are struggling with same-sex attraction. And they meet, and they're called the Brotherhood, and they're Christian. And then they have, retreats and, sponsors and meetings and all this stuff. But it is that, yeah, it's you're allowed to struggle, of course, but you can't do the action.
But are retreats in air quotes?
Well, yeah, for me they are.
Wink, wink.
I also want to say for a second, love the sinner, hate the sin, that's just a bullshit stance. That is a coward's way out. If you hate queer people, just say you hate queer people.
Yeah.
Say it with your chest. Don't take this half-ass thing, because you cannot hate these parts of me without hating me. Queerness is not just who I fuck. I've said this before on this podcast. It's about who I want to have a relationship with. It's about the life I want to have. To hate that part of me is to hate me. Dobson, you'll be shocked to hear, claims he doesn't hate queer people. I have a couple different quotes here. Quote, gay activists come with preconceived notions about who we, focus on the family, are, and what we believe, and the hate that boils from within, which is simply untrue. Regardless of what the media might say, Focus on the Family has no interest in promoting hatred towards homosexuals or anyone else. We also don't wish to deprive them of their basic constitutional rights.
Thanks.
The Constitution applies to all of us. This is from a book called the, Complete Marriage and Family Home Reference Guide, a specific section called A Letter from a Gay Man. Dobson also has all these things that are did a gay man really write that letter to you? Maybe.
Perhaps.
Also, very conveniently worded the way that it's
Yeah,
written.
a letter from James Dobson pretending to be a gay man.
Yeah. a couple things stand out to me, but one, connecting it to constitutional rights. The Constitution applies to all of us. Going back to this Christian fascism that we talked about last time, infusing Christianity and patriotism is key to Dobson's beliefs. Therefore, he thinks we should have a theocratic society where, because God says so, gay people shouldn't get married.
So in some ways, is that like speaking to separation of church and state?
He doesn't want there to be one, but yes.
Right.
Yeah. He makes bad arguments. The founding fathers were not Christian as we understand it today, especially not Dobson's kinds of Christian. They were what's called deists, which is like they believe in the Platonic idea of a god.
Okay.
And they might like go to a church, but it's so different from this.
Yeah.
He plays some lip service to like, God made everyone, love the sin or hate the sin. And then, quote, whereas we have never attempted to hurt or ridicule the individual homosexual or lesbian, I do find myself in sharp disagreement with more radical elements of the movement. That would be us. The movement to redefine the family, qualify for adoption, promote the homosexual lifestyle in schools, etc. are objectives with which I disagree, and I will oppose them when these issues are raised. Does that make me a hate monger?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it does, actually, James Dobson.
If you have to ask it, it's likely true.
The things that are listed here, redefining family, Dobson has a very specific nuclear family ideal that has not been historically true. He kind of redefined family to mean this one thing. And this isn't even a gay thing. Like, a family can be a mom and a stepdad and a grandparent and 2 kids. Or it can be a single mom and her children. It can be 2 dads and their kids. It can be multiple partners and polyamory and children. We're getting a little bit spicy up here.
Uh-oh.
That can actually be okay and doesn't harm children. Right? Kids need attachment figures and places of security and people who love and care for them. The gender, the number of people, isn't the most important thing all the time.
Does he have feelings about those other than polyamory, because I can only imagine, but does he have feelings about what you just said, like about blended families or about single parents or...
Yeah, they're not great. He views them as... So he is very hierarchical in his belief. He also is a eugenicist, and his mentor is a eugenicist, like pretty openly eugenicist. And so...
Paul Papone.
Paul Papone. Editor's note, his name is pronounced Paul Popenoe. He's also a eugenicist, so it doesn't fucking matter. He believes that there is a, like, best way of being, and so it is able-bodied, it is straight, it is white, although he won't say that. It's being a man, right?
Yeah.
And so anything under that is a deviation. You can still be gay and whatever, but it's less than. And so those other types of families, he goes out of his way to try to provide support for single moms, but in this way that's like super demeaning.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying that, I realize that like that's like charity.
Yes.
Right? It's like, the single mom with the kid is the charity that you have to give to. Quote,
pastors have a responsibility to care for them, the gays, to be compassionate to them, and by all means lead them out of this behavior into a more consistent way of life. Consistent way of life. That is from Homosexuality in the 21st Century Church on Focus on the Family. He's defining hate as love. It's one thing to say, I am making the choice for myself not to have these kinds of relationships, right? But pastors have a responsibility to lead gay people out of, quote, this behavior. That's gross. And into a more consistent way of life. I'm pretty consistent with being gay, actually.
Yeah.
And you can have solid, stable relationships while being queer. This erases all of that. Because it's less than. He also denies that homophobia exists just at all.
While simultaneously being homophobic.
Well, he's not. You just heard all these quotes. He's not homophobic.
I believe him.
They're doing it out of... The way to love homosexuals is to tell them that they're going to hell.
Like, just warning you.
Yeah, heads up. Quote, one more thought about expressions of hatred. The question is, who is endeavoring to hurt whom? Have we brought caskets to your front door?
Yes.
Have we thrown bricks through your windows?
Yes.
Have we left bloody animal parts on your property?
Probably.
Have we this is my favorite one. Have we spread untrue rumors about your activities and motives?
Yes.
We talked about it so many times. He compares them to pedophiles. Have we spray painted your buildings or made bomb threats at your offices?
Yes.
Sorry. No! But all of these hostilities have been inflicted on us by the homosexual community and its supporters in Colorado Springs.
Specifically?
Well, that's where the Focus on the Family headquarters are.
Oh.
Nevertheless, we have not returned evil for evil, nor do we intend to. Thus, the charge that we are hateful is simply not rooted in fact.
I am gonna scream.
Do it.
I can't, I have been to every Pride parade for the last 25 years. You always hit that part where people are holding up horrific signs, screaming horrifying things at people. And fights go down there, and they're not. These are the people starting them.
Well, those aren't real Christians. Real Christians once spread hatred that way.
Oh, I see.
It's this moving goalposts of what a real Christian is, and anyone who is not homophobic enough for Dobson isn't a real Christian, but anyone who's too mean about it also isn't a real Christian. It's only the ones who do it exactly how Dobson says, exactly with his rhetoric. Those are the real ones.
Okay, so the people picketing the funerals are not real Christians.
According to Dobson, no.
Okay.
It feels also particularly weird, the bomb threats part.
Yeah.
The libs of TikTok is a current, Twitter phenomenon, and anytime they post about any specifically trans but generally queer teacher in a school district, that school district then gets a ton of bomb threats. They recently did something about Planet Fitness, because Planet Fitness allows trans women to use the women's locker room, and 50 Planet Fitnesses all over the country have gotten bomb threats since then. Quite literally, Dobson, yes. I do believe people did those things to focus on the family. It sucks for them, I guess, but it's one organization versus you are creating laws based on this hatred. You're discriminating us in these more profound ways. I'm sorry someone spray painted your building. Not really. Sorry about it.
Get some soap and water.
Yeah.
Remind me what year this was written.
This one was a letter from a gay man. It was the same one. So, publisher, publication date 2000, the year 2000.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A weird time.
Another quote saying homophobia doesn't exist. Quote, "My point is not to decry money being spent on the horrible AIDS epidemic. I'm simply making the point that the homosexual community is hardly an oppressed, powerless minority seeking protection under the law. You have Hollywood, the press, the media, the universities, the publishers, the professionals in the American Bar Association, the American Medical Association, and the judiciary enforcing your politically correct agenda. Conservative Christians, by contrast, are stranded pretty much on their own. Given this undergirding, I'm sure you can see that our opposition to the gay and lesbian tidal wave is not an expression of hate, but one of social justice and common sense."
My God.
I want to choke myself out right now.
Social justice warrior James Dobson.
Feminist icon, social justice warrior.
Wow.
A little bit of a side note. We're going to get into this a little bit more, but he's not discriminated against. He's worked with every Republican president since and including Reagan. The fundraising and lobbying arm of Focus on the Family is called Focus on the Family Action, or Policy Alliance. The name changed a bunch of times. It raised nearly $9 million in support of 6 Republican candidates when it was first established, and it's gone crazy since then. We did this in our first episode. We went over his biography, but he was appointed to Reagan to the National Advisory Commission of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. He served as co-chairman of the Citizens Advisory Panel for Tax Reform in consultation with Reagan. Was a chairman of the United States Army's Family Initiative from 1986 to 88. He served on the Attorney General Edwin Measy's Commission on Pornography in the 80s. He consulted with George W. Bush on family matters. He was appointed by Senator Robert Dole to the Commission of Child and Family Welfare, by Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott to the National Gambling Impact and Study Commission. People credit Bush's 2004 win to Dobson, specifically because Dobson and his organizations had a hard push in Ohio and Florida. He has so much political influence, so much power.
If you'd like to learn more about Dobson's history, you can find his CV at the end of Dare to Discipline.
He put his CV at the end of his first book.
I heard through the podcast.
So funny. Conversion therapy advocates have been regular parts of Oprah, Good Morning America, the CBS Evening News, the 700 Club, and many more, by Dobson's own admission. He's not without power. You're not an oppressed minority. Every president has been a self-professed Christian. like 90-something% of Congress are all self-professed Christians. They might be a different kind of Christian than you are, Dobson, but you have political power.
So he thinks that Christians are marginalized.
They love to be the victim. They love to be the martyr.
Oppressed.
Yes.
Sure.
Because the way they define Christian, Catholics don't count, so they rule out all of them.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry. Liberal Christian organizations that allow gay people to not want to kill themselves are not considered
Unitarians.
Unitarians. Even some like Presbyterians. Anyone who allows a woman pastor, not a real Christian. So he defines it so narrowly and specifically and stupidly that eventually, statistically, yeah, you're the minority.
But like to bolster his position, making him the majority, and yet he... What?
Yeah.
It is gaslighting, is what this is. And I have only come into this somewhat recently in my own journey through deconstruction of, I was gaslit my entire life about these things. Because when it's convenient, they're the majority. They're the silent majority, the moral majority, whatever. When it's convenient, they're super marginalized and oppressed, and how dare the gays do this to them. It's so squishy. I say the slipperiness of his language a lot. Because he doesn't take any one position. Much like Trump, he takes whatever position is convenient at the time to make his point.
I mean, because he's doing and saying violent things toward queer people, and then he's saying, I'm not violent toward queer people. And then you're sitting there being like if you're a follower in that way and you're queer or closeted or whatever, you're sitting there being like, what does it even mean to get support as a gay person? What does it mean to, like, I don't understand how someone, and, you know, maybe Jake, you can speak on this, but how someone can trust their reality and the validity of their experience as a gay person or as a queer person while experiencing the violence, but not hearing it at the same time.
You're specifically told and trained not to. And not just queer people. Any type of sinful activity. There's a lot that evangelicals pull from the Bible that are like, the heart is, above all things, deceitful. So don't trust yourself. Whatever you're feeling, if it's not according with the Bible, it's a lie.
Yeah.
And Dobson's interpretation of the
It's
Bible.
very much, do not listen to your body. Do not listen to your feelings, right? Do not trust yourself. Only listen to the Bible and James Dobson.
I work out after therapy most days, and it's partly a stress reliever, but it's partly for me to get back in tune with my body, because I was told and trained and rewarded for so long to not do that.
Wow.
It's pretty tough. It's also when I was really coming to a boiling point with my own sexuality, I was self-harming because it was the only way I could feel back in touch with my body again.
And like how, genuinely, Jake, like how beautiful that your body was able to say, like, actually, you need to be in touch with me. And even though, you know, self-harm can be sticky sometimes, can be obviously really painful and difficult, that is your body saying, yeah, but like, we get to do this. I have control over this.
Yeah.
And just another side note, this is also the basis of like all of diet culture, right?
Yes.
It's do not listen to your body, follow this book full of rules. And that's why intuitive eating is so important.
You're not really hungry.
You're not really hungry. You don't need that.
This is how Dobson actually talks about queer people. And here are some great quotes that are going to be so helpful and healthy for all of us to listen to.
I need to take a drink.
Yes, please. Quote, if the condition, being gay, resulted from inherent characteristics, it would be constant across time. Instead, there have been society throughout the ages, such as Sodom and Gomorrah, and the ancient Greek and Roman empires, where homosexuality reached epidemic proportions. And the historical record tells us that those cultures, and many others, gradually descended into depravity.
What?
So, he doesn't understand history.
Right.
That's number one.
Start there. But the argument that he's making, the stupid argument that he's making, is anytime a culture accepts homosexuality, it's a sign of their moral decay that they cannot recover from, unless they outlaw homosexuality again. And he's very specific. Sodom and Gomorrah, for instance, he believes that God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because they allowed gay people to be there. That's where you get the word sodomy from. It's also a misunderstanding of the religious text itself. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is one about hospitality. The people that Dobson is claiming are gay surrounded... So in Sodom and Gomorrah, there's a guy named Lot.
Oh, yeah.
He is like the only godly person there, and so God's going to destroy the town, but someone's like, no, not Lot. So it's like, okay, well, let's get Lot out. An angel comes to visit Lot, and then the town gathers around to rape this angel. They don't know it's an angel.
Oh. To rape the angel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They want the visitor to be brought out so they can rape them. And that's people's proof that, like, see, they're talking about gay stuff. They want to rape this person. Which, a lot...
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
But then, as a compromise, Lot gives them his daughters. And that's not really gay behavior, if you're asking me. As we've talked about before, sexual assault is not about sex. It's about power. It's not about being gay.
No.
No. The Greek and Roman empires fell not because of homosexuality. The Roman Empire lasted for so long. There's not one reason why it fell. You can't say it was just this one thing, let alone homosexuality.
Yeah.
I care a lot about being factually correct, and not that I need to be correct, but if I'm saying something I want to be correct. Dobson just doesn't, and stuff like this just drives me insane. Like,
it's almost like he's collecting data to bolster his argument of just like, well, look what happened here, and then people who are kind of, just like following him are going to be like, oh yeah, exactly. Then they add data to their bucket. And
yeah, but none of it's data.
Down.
Like, it's all 100%, just ideas.
Yeah.
And if you try to trace this back to anything, it goes nowhere.
In moments of honesty and or lucidity, evangelical Christians will admit that they start with the outcome. They start with the Bible. What the Bible says has to be true, and therefore let's look for evidence to and what we believe the Bible says. It has to be true.
It's almost like negativity bias in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's confirmation bias. Okay.
Confirmation bias, yeah.
I think homosexuality is bad. I see that the Romans let gay people be there, and then the Roman Empire isn't around anymore. Therefore, it's because it was bad that they fell, connecting those dots, which is not intellectually honest at all. Another quote, "The most important message I can offer you is that there is no such thing as a gay child or a gay teen. But left untreated, studies show that boys have a 75% chance of becoming homosexual or bisexual." Both of those are quotes from Bringing Up Boys. That specific one was by Dr. Joseph Nicolosi, the guy who founded conversion therapy. So, like, just directly violent. And there's more. What if a pedophile could claim that he inherited his lust for kids?
What if?
What if? Does that make his abuse of children any less offensive? The source of their sexual preference is irrelevant to the behavior itself, which is deemed to be immoral and reprehensible by society.
That is not the same thing.
But he doesn't lie about people's motives, remember? He would never do that.
No.
No. Moms and dads, are you listening? This movement, the gay rights movement, is the greatest threat to your children.
The greatest threat.
Scary.
Not people walking into your children's schools with guns.
No.
Funny you should say that.
Oh, no.
He blames queer people for mass shootings.
In what world?
About the Sandy Hook massacre. Quote, "Our country really does seem to be in complete disarray, and I'm not talking politically. I'm not talking about the results of the November 6th election. I'm saying that something has gone wrong in America and that we have turned our back on God. I mean, millions of people have decided that God doesn't exist, or he's irrelevant to me, and we've killed 54 million babies." What? Abortion.
Oh.
"And the institution of marriage is right on the verge of complete redefinition. Believe me, that is going to have consequences too."
The Roman Empire will fall.
It will. The Christians do believe that we are the inheritor of that lineage of, like, the Roman Empire, ... America.
Sure, that tracks.
Which goes to, it's actually just a really strong part of fascism. The shortest definition is polygenetic ultranationalism. Our people, not just Americans, our people were once great, have fallen from greatness, and we need to make them great again. And they define our people as the Romans, as the Greeks, as a stupid version of all those things, but it's try to connect them through history. It's also why a lot of evangelicals will talk about Judeo-Christian values. They're not actually based in Judaism at all, really, but it's try to say, oh, these beliefs that I have aren't modern inventions from the 50s. They've been around for 5,000 years.
Don't pull us into this.
evangelicalism is so anti-Semitic, and they will not own up to it even for a second. Just like they're homophobic and won't own up to it. After the El Paso shooting, for the rest of us, continuing to support entities such as the James Dobson Foundation Initiative, Institute, whatever, that believe in marriage, not traditional marriage, but just in marriage, and are working to preserve the righteousness in a pagan world. The LGBTQ movement is closing in on the God-inspired and established institution of the family. If it goes down, our country will fall with it. In that same letter, he also references Sandy Hook, Columbine, Parkland, Sutherland Springs, Las Vegas, and the Tree of Life Synagogue. The issue isn't the guns, it's the gay people. It's that we've become depraved. We've allowed people's feelings to overtake God's order for us.
I have nothing to say.
What about that shooting where they shot all those gay people?
Pulse nightclub.
Yeah.
That was Islam.
Oh, right.
They're homophobic.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that guy.
Aren't you getting depressed? Isn't this
like...
Yeah.
This isn't even the worst part yet. Quote, the Family Research Council, one of Dobson's organizations, believes that homosexual conduct is harmful to the persons who engage in it and to society at large, and can never be affirmed. It is by definition unnatural, and as such is associated with negative physical and psychological health effects. That was a quote from the Family Research Council in 2016.
Oh my God. Or the fruch.
Less catchy than thought of.
Yeah, I guess so.
The head of the Family Research Council was interviewed by Chris Matthews on MSNBC somewhere around this time. Here's just a brief transcript. Chris Matthews, do you think we should outlaw gay behavior? Family Research Council's Peter Sprigg, I think there should be a place for criminal sanctions against homosexual behavior. So, to follow up, Chris Matthews says, so we should outlaw gay behavior. And Sprigg just says, yes.
Wow.
You can't compare us to pedophiles, say we're the greatest threat to your kids, call us degenerates, and say we're unraveling society, and then also claim you don't hate us.
Correct.
Gaslighting.
Yes, it's intense gaslighting, and it's really hard to argue against because most people who say that genuinely believe that that's what love is to homosexuals. The worst times for me in coming out were not the people who were calling me slurs because they were trying to be mean to me. It was the people who thought they had my best interest in heart and were torturing me. That was hardest. Because then I couldn't say, hey, you're hurting me. Either, no, I'm not, or well, that's not me, that's God stirring something in your heart, trying to move you towards his will. Or that's the consequences of being gay.
Or this is me loving you.
Or this is me loving you. I'm doing this because I love you. Which is kind of Dobson's whole thing. Doing hateful things out of love. Going back all the way to Dare to Discipline, ka-chow.
You stole Brooke's thunder.
No, I loved it. I was like, what is...
He says the loving thing to do to your kids is to physically abuse them.
Right, like that. I was just about to say, like, that is the sort of like core belief of abuse, right? I'm doing this because I love you.
I hurt you because I love you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But his rhetoric isn't the worst part. A lot of people say a lot of dumb shit, and I can make fun of them for it, but whatever. It's the actions behind it that feel particularly difficult. Dobson and his groups have done a ton of shitty things, such as lobbying the Boy Scouts of America not to include gay members, lobbying against the Equality Act, which would have added gender, sexual orientation, and marital status to federally recognized assistance programs, housing sales, rentals, finances, whatever. Lobbied against that. They took money from the AIDS relief funds. Throughout his existence, Dobson has attacked the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, a U.S. government organization to fight AIDS worldwide. In 2006, he claimed, quote, 80% of this money is going towards terrible programs that are immoral as well as ineffective. For example, to promote condom distribution, people associated with this government program have dressed up like condoms and created ceramic sculptures of male genitalia. which
are shown off in my home.
He renewed his attack in 2023, falsely claiming that organization funds abortion. Focus on the Family received a grant of almost $50,000 from that same organization in 2017 to operate an abstinence-only purity pledge program. He's taking money from these things that he says might be useful. He pays a lot of lip service to how horrible AIDS is and how we should try to prevent it, but we'll take your money for that.
Oh my God.
A brief overview of some of I believe this is focused on the family specifically, from GLAAD. I got this from GLAAD. FRC basically claims that the Equality Act would, quote, massively overhaul our federal civil rights framework in order to mandate special privileges for sexual orientation and gender identity, expand abortion access, and gut religious liberty, and would be a disaster for all Americans. Basically claimed in a documentary that, quote, one of the primary goals of homosexual rights movement is to abolish all age of consent laws.
Oh my God.
Promotes ex-gay movements as a way to combat LGBTQ plus civil rights measures and refute the claims of victims of abuse. Stuff like that. But Dobson's evil is more than just any one specific actions. Those things are terrible, but writing awful parenting books is what got him attention and influence. But what he did with that influence is the real story here. And this is really Dobson's work and legacy. Yeah, I'm going to turn to an article from 1989 by Russell Chandler in the LA Times called Evangelical Broadcaster Seeks Pro-Life Family Lobby. I think it's interesting that it was written in 1989 as well. People have been on Dobson's bullshit throughout all of this. People have been trying to warn people against this. Quote, James C. Dobson, the Southern California psychologist and evangelical Christian radio broadcaster, has launched a public policy program to promote pro-family coalitions in all 50 states in order to, quote, affect legislation and affect our culture. Once these coalitions are placed, Dobson wrote supporters of his ministry, our state legislators will discover that they can no longer write off the concerns of the conservative Christian families. The behind-the-scenes program, according to Peb Jackson, senior vice president at Dobson's, I have no Pomana, whatever, of Dobson's Focus on the Family organization, is designed to help regional coalitions emphasize goals shared by Dobson's ministries. These include outlawing abortion, supporting homeschooling, campaigning against pornography, and backing conservative political candidates, and obviously homophobia. What this piece is saying is, at this time in 1989, Dobson is creating coalitions in all 50 states, specifically to influence politicians. And then he did it.
My God.
Dobson is the founder of Focus on the Family, FOTF, which described the alliance building as a behind-the-scenes program to affect legislation and culture without appearing to be coordinated. So these things he did or was trying to do in secret so that it seemed like it was this grassroots, everyone just hates the gays, when really it was an incredibly coordinated campaign. We called that astroturfing. According to the United Methodist Reporter, so another religious organization, members were urged to keep the existence of the alliance a secret, so they would appear to be diversity of different groups rather than a coordinated effort. Members of these alliance became known as family policy councils. These still influence politics today. Some examples include the Cornerstone Policy Research in New Hampshire, the Colorado Family Action, Alabama Policy Institute, Family Research Council, which we'll get to in a second. Also, the Frontline Policy Council in Georgia. I call this one out specifically because in the aftermath of the 2020 election, it came out that Donald Trump called the Secretary of State trying to illegally overturn the election. Right after that story broke, the Frontline Policy Council fundraised off of it. So they are very involved in politics. They're very connected to all Republican donors and legislatures and what have you, to this day.
It's so wild to hear how blended this is into every facet of our culture. And by our culture, I mean like in the United States specifically, but it sounds like this is also international.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it touches everything.
American culture, because of imperialism, is global culture in a lot of ways, or impacts global culture pretty significantly. And the Republican Party is the main political organization in the United States. Democrats get fucked. And the Republican Party is controlled by Dobson, essentially. Not exclusively, but pretty heavily. Talk with the Family Research Council. This is a quote from their website. Family policy councils, the state-based ones, accomplish at a state level what the Family Research Council does at a national level, shape public debate and formulate public policy. They work with state legislators and local government officials and community leaders to encourage and initiate, quote, pro-life policies. All of these things, it's a network, and it is built as a network to share these resources. We talked about this in our first episode, but the model legislation that was in Mississippi that ended up overturning Roe v. Wade came from organizations like this, and they drafted it and shared it across different states, trying to get it to the Supreme Court. It is quick, it is effective, it is organized.
Wow.
The FRC has lobbied against same-sex marriage, hate crime laws, anti-bullying programs, and the repeal of the military's don't ask, don't tell policy. They continue to do this work, but have revived long-debunked pedophilia and grooming myths in its work against transgender rights, opposition to drag performances, and support for conversion therapy. The latter is in response to state-level international bans on conversion therapy for minors. That's from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Anytime there's legislation, anytime there's public debate against queer shit, it is either directly from these kinds of organizations or at the very, most distanced, heavily supported by them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also organize events so that anti-queer politicians can collaborate. One of these is called the Values Voter Summit, and it brought together the likes of Ted Cruz, Rick Santorum, and Mike Huckabee.
What a party.
What a party.
Delicious.
Nightmare blunt rotation, I swear to God. In the past, speakers have compared same-sex couples getting married to illegal drug use and people marrying children or dogs. So, that's the kind of company they're keeping. And Ted Cruz is a senator. Mike Huckabee, his daughter, is governor of Arkansas. These are big names in this level of bullshit. It's so connected, and Dobson made this intentionally for these goals. It is working as intended. Dobson helped create a culture founded on homophobia and misogyny. Quote, the sociologist Sally Gallinger, in an examination of evangelical attitudes towards feminism, concludes, beliefs about the Bible, on the other hand, have no significant statistical effects on attitudes towards feminism. So believing the Bible doesn't predict how you will feel about feminism. You can be pro-feminist, you can be anti-feminist, doesn't matter if you read the Bible. Neither thinking that the Bible should be interpreted word for word, nor the idea that the Bible provides the most important source of knowing how God wants you to live, has any independent effect on whether feminism is seen as a competing or hostile beliefs or set of values. So, Bible inerrancy, Bible literalism, reading the Bible, none of these things predict how you will feel about feminism. Independent of religious affiliation, the amount of hours spent consuming Christian evangelical radio or television serves as the strongest indicator for aversion to feminism. So this entire network that Dobson has created of political action. Also, Dobson is a big radio guy. He got famous for his radio broadcasts. Still has radio broadcasts pretty much every fucking day. Listening to that is what will turn you against the gays, will turn you against feminism. It creates a culture of homophobia and misogyny.
But he's oppressed.
But he's oppressed.
Yeah.
And not homophobic.
No.
And loves women.
Mm-hmm.
He's married to one. He has to love them.
Oh, sure.
I've never met a straight guy married to a woman who doesn't hate women.
Sure.
Can I pause for a second to say that this is the first time I heard James Dobson has a middle initial?
Oh, yeah, C.
See, and I'd like to know, is it Chester?
Ooh, good question.
Charles.
Charles?
It's got to be Charles.
I feel like it's something old-timey and southern.
Christopher.
Clifford.
Fancy.
Ah, it is an old-timey southern name. Clayton.
Clayton.
Oh. Wouldn't have thought of that.
No.
There's a really good book that anyone who likes this podcast, if you haven't read it already, I don't know why. It's called Jesus and John Wayne. It's about white evangelical Christianity from a cultural lens. It's really good. In that book, writing about Dobson's view of masculinity, quote, it was a vision that promised protection from women. Protection for women.
I think we've tapped into Dobson's real fear here.
But left women without defense, one that worshipped power and turned a blind eye to justice, and one that transformed the Jesus of the Gospels into an image of their own making. I say that evangelicalism made homophobia its idol. It worships at the altar of homophobia. Because if you're defining a person's faith exclusively by do you hate gay people or not, that's not actually about then your faith. It's about homophobia.
Yeah, I said this in the first episode. I was like, even homosexuals are not this obsessed with homosexuality.
Retweet.
This is an obsession.
We have a little bit more difficult stuff, and then we'll get to more of a fun thing. Not that any of this is really fun.
I don't believe you.
Focus on the Family. James Dobson no longer leads Focus on the Family. But I went on their website. Here are resources available for free right now from Focus on the Family. Resources when your child encounters LGBT ideology at school. Talking with kids about abortion and homosexuality. Is my teen struggling with homosexuality? Gay identified adult children living in a parent's home. Also, gay identified again.
Well, aside from that, this is another one of those slippery language things, right? Because it's like the what are they called? Like, well, Planned Parenthood is the good one, but the other one, like
Crisis pregnancy centers?
Yes, thank you. This is like, what if you are a good person and you're like, I just want to find out more about my teen saying that they're gay, right?
Right, like
and this
hearing
is the material.
hearing those titles, I'm like, those could be actually really helpful resources.
Right.
And then you open it up and they're like...
Which I think is why they sort of innocently end up places, right? That where people, they assume it's a good resource.
Somewhere a little bit less, someone could mistake them for good faith. The homosexual community, small number, big influence.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
He wrote a letter in 2008 before the election titled Letter from 2012 in Obama's America.
In Obama's America.
Oh,
Thanks,
God.
Obama.
So,
Thanks, Obama.
what would happen if Obama got elected? I have all 16 pages printed out right here. I have a couple different copies of them. This one's going to be mine.
So this is, so he wrote this in 2008 before Obama was elected?
Yes.
And this is like how the America will fall
Exactly.
under Obama's presidency. Okay.
Jordan, I'm going to give this one to you. And this one I have highlighted every time that he talks about gay shit. So look through this and just give me an overview of how much yellow do you see?
Okay. Well, I am now on page 3, and 3/4 of the page is highlighted, and then you turn the page over, and the whole page is highlighted except for the footnotes.
Probably should have highlighted the footnotes too.
Then you go to page 5, also the whole page other than the footnotes. Page 6, the whole first half, and then 3 sentences on the way down. Where are we? Page 7, a fourth of the page. Nothing on page 8.
Yeah, that one's the foreign policy stuff.
Little break. Page 9, all of it. Page 10, nothing. Page 11. Ooh, and page 12, and page 13, nothing.
A little bit more broad. I put all this into a Word document and cut out anything that's not explicitly about gay stuff. 6 out of the 16 pages are just anti-gay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Talking about how much gay people are going to ruin America should Obama dare to be elected. Brooke,
Yes.
this one for you. These
Thank
are
you.
what actually ended up happening. If you go through, just look for any highlighted bits.
There's a little highlight on page 3. Just the words "don't ask, don't tell." Page 6. Oh my God. Just the highlighted word "Russia" sent troops to occupy. Okay, so one sentence on page 10.
Which also didn't have, saying Russia would send troops to occupy Ukraine didn't happen under Obama. Also now evangelicals are against supporting Ukraine largely, so.
And that's it.
So in all of this fear-mongering, and all 6 pages of gay stuff and all 16 pages in total, 3 of those things actually happened. If you read it, it's actually horrifyingly ironic, a lot of the things that he says. Like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg would step down, and Obama would get to fill her spot on the Supreme Court.
R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Yeah, stuff like that. That's just fear-mongering. Dobson thrives on the politics of fear. That is how these things happen. There's this thing called affective override that is affective. It's about your emotions. When you are in a heightened emotional state, often you're not thinking with your full brain. Not all the resources are being evenly distributed. You're not using your prefrontal cortex for planning and logic and da-da. You're focused on the thing that you're scared about.
Yep.
And when you tell parents gay people are pedophiles who want to molest your kids, that's pretty fucking scary. And it makes people not really think and investigate that. And eventually, like Brooke was saying earlier, it gets just repeated and just ingrained into the culture and just taken for granted.
And can I just say, so we just looked at all the paperwork. Obama's presidency has come and gone. We know how it all went. It's happened. And still, I think people have a revisionist history and a cognitive dissonance about it that still says all that stuff happened, right? Because they're remembering the fear of it.
The 3 things that really happened from this is the Supreme Court made marriage equality a thing. Don't ask, don't tell was repealed. And then Russia invaded
And something
Ukraine.
about Russia.
And Russia.
Yeah.
And Russia went on to openly support gay people, as they always have.
Thanks, Russia.
Thanks, Russia.
So, that is an overview of the many reasons why James Dobson hates me. I want to turn it to you both, though. You may not have grown up in evangelical spaces, but you did grow up in America, which is kind of the same thing. Talk to me about working through internalized homophobia and shame. How do you do that? What does that look like with your clients? Because most of the people listening to this aren't going to be evangelical, or if they are, good on you, are going to probably in the middle of a deconstruction process of some kind. It's tough. How do you work through internalized homophobia and shame?
Yeah, I mean, I think I certainly see it with a lot of my clients, right? I think maybe even more so with female identified clients, right? Because there's also internalized misogyny going on. And within myself, I think it took me a really long time to identify my own queerness because of it. Not because of like homophobia, but sort of this idea that like anything that wasn't black or white that I couldn't figure out didn't exist. Right? And so to be queer, pan or bi or whatever, it like that there wasn't a world where that sort of existed.
Yeah, on my end, I feel like I knew like no queer people growing up, and I knew I was queer from a very young age. Shout out when I was 8 years old, my dad's Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition hidden in my attic so I could look at it at my pleasure. Thanks, Steve. No, but I've known from a very young age. I came out when I was 15, and I think for me it's been more about having more femme, quote unquote, friends, being really worried that they would think I was watching them while they were changing, or they would think that I was in love with them or wanted to like do whatever. So for me, a lot of unpacking is more around how do I allow myself to be in attraction in a way that is actually attached to like my own desires and feelings versus I'm protecting myself from so-and-so thinking something, right, about me. And so it's been a lot of that kind of unpacking, and then also being surrounded by queer people very intentionally, which I know is a privilege. And, the three of us work in a space where like we are celebrated by being openly queer. And so yeah, I think a lot of it is environmental. I think a lot of it is personal. Having a therapist myself who is queer, and just like really questioning when these like kind of hard beliefs come up. A question I'll always ask my clients is like, is that your voice or is that someone else's? I see that too. What has been internalized, right? And I think that's kind of the main piece of unpacking of like, who are we actually listening to here, and how do we dig through the muck to get to what actual like capital S self feels or is saying, whether in my situation for like attraction or, beliefs about self, beliefs about others. This stuff is hard to work through.
Yeah.
And I always say it's kind of like the soup that we're all swimming in, right? Like we are not immune to homophobia just because we're like out and gay and like proud of that. Like we are still in that soup societally. All of that to say it's really complicated, and I don't believe there's like a end point to that journey. I think it's like a consistent and constant unpacking that has to happen.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. As you're talking about it, I'm thinking about like I did grow up surrounded by queer people, right? Like my mom was an actress, my stepdad was a director. There was a lot of gay men specifically in the 80s and 90s in theater. My mom had a lot of friends, through the AIDS crisis. And I did, but it was gay men, right? Like cis gay men. And so I think I grew up even into my 20s and probably into my early 30s, right, with this idea of like women supporting men, right? And women showing up for men. And even back in the day, all the sort of terms for like straight women who were hanging around with gay men, right? And so I had a different experience than you, where it hadn't really occurred to me that, I was like, ally. And then when it sort of landed, where I was like, why do I get those strange feelings around the women? And it's like, oh, wow, you're in your mid-30s, and as soon as I let that, like, as soon as I, like, moved the internalized homophobia away and I let it land, it was like dominoes. Like, it went all the way back to my childhood, and I was like, oh, that's what that was, and that's what that was, and that's what that was, like, through my whole life. Right?
I call that breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Like, you follow the breadcrumbs back. It creates a loaf at some point.
You're a loaf.
You're a loaf. I loaf you.
What I hear from both of you and what I know for myself as well is listening to yourself, which is a skill that takes time to build for a lot of reasons. It's not what we're expected, conditioned, rewarded
Absolutely.
for. But when you're able to listen to yourself and what do you want? What is your body telling you? My parents, God bless them, used to say, God gave you a brain for a reason. I don't believe people who say you can't trust yourself to know what you actually think or what is right. All you have is your senses. You have to navigate the world like that. The other thing is, life shouldn't be miserable. I can't tell you what decisions to make, who to date, who to marry, when to come out, how to come out, whatever. But life shouldn't be miserable. Life is a gift.
That's so true.
Dobson has been arguably the most influential anti-queer activist in our lifetimes. Any anti-queer legislation has been endorsed by him and his organizations, if not directly created by them. I hate him not just because he has some bad beliefs. I hate him because he has caused irreparable harm to countless people, some of whom I know, some of whom I never will. I got a comment a little bit ago on a social media post saying something to the effects of like, why can't you just let this go? It seems easy to ignore Dobson. And no, it isn't, because he has so much power. Even if you don't do a deep dive into his books, something only a psychopath would do, it's impossible to escape his influence. But Dobson can't let his hate of queer people go. He has decades of rants, books, and vile political actions specifically targeting us. It is he who cannot let it go. Queerness is beautiful. It is a natural part of the earth and of the human experiences. Queer people have always been around and always will be. This Pride Month, because it's Pride Month.
Allegedly.
This Pride Month, now more than ever, it's so important to be visible, to take up space, to say, we're here, to live openly and freely, to live as you, to love who you love, and, least importantly of all, to hate James Dobson.
I hate James Dobson.
I really don't like James Dobson.
Close enough. We'll get you there. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us in this episode. We'll see you in the next one in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
When it's later in June.
Yeah. Thanks for the trauma, you guys.
Yay! I Hate James Dobson is a labor of love, written, recorded, edited, and produced by me, Jake. I'm honored to be joined by my amazing co-host, Brooke. If you're enjoying the show, please consider rating and reviewing it. And if you want to connect with us more, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at I Hate James Dobson, and on Twitter at I Hate J Dobbs. Special thanks to Drew, Lindsay, DJ, and Jack. Our theme music is by Mood Maze, and the song is called Trendsetter. Thank you for enjoying the show.